A World Cup broadcast on the BBC suddenly turned into one of the strangest talking points of the tournament. At halftime of Ivory Coast versus Ecuador, former Manchester United coach and South African football legend Benni McCarthy made a comment that instantly raised eyebrows. He suggested that the two teams looked as if they had already agreed on the result. Yes, live on BBC coverage, McCarthy joked, that Ecuador and Ivory Coast appeared to be playing as if a draw suited them both. But football has a brutal way of punishing assumptions. Because just when it looked like the match might drift toward a quiet, tactical stalemate, one late moment changed everything. And the player who delivered it was someone McCarthy knows very well. The World Cup in North America has already produced huge storylines. Big names have been making headlines. Kylian Mbappe, Erling Haaland, and Lionel Messi have already found the net, while Spain were held to a shocking 0-0 draw by Cape Verde. But during Ecuador versus Ivory Coast, the drama did not only come from the pitch, it came from the studio. As the two sides went into halftime, the game appeared cagey, controlled, and low risk. Neither team looked ready to open the match up completely. The tempo was cautious, the attacking threat was limited, and to many viewers, it felt like both sides were trying not to lose, rather than pushing hard to win. That was when Benni McCarthy gave his view. Speaking during the BBC broadcast, he compared the match to Germany's huge win over Curaçao, joking that maybe Germany had taken all the goals and left none for this fixture. Then he went further. McCarthy suggested the two teams looked like they were thinking, let's keep it safe, we can both qualify, we take a point each, and then we deal with Germany and Curaçao later. And then came the line that grabbed attention. He said it looked like they had already agreed on the result. Now, it was clearly delivered in a tongue-in-cheek way. McCarthy was not presenting evidence of anything serious. He was reacting to the rhythm of the match, the cautious approach, and the way both teams seemed reluctant to take major risks. But in a World Cup environment, comments like that travel fast. Because when a pundit says two teams look like they have agreed on a result, even as a joke, fans immediately react. Some laugh, some question it, some clip it. And suddenly, a quiet first half becomes a talking point far beyond the actual football. For Ecuador, the match mattered enormously. They entered the tournament with a reputation as one of the possible dark horses. Their defensive strength had been one of their biggest qualities, and they were expected to be difficult to break down. For Ivory Coast, the stakes were just as high. The African nation has played at previous World Cups but has never managed to go beyond the group stage. So every point matters, every chance matters, every late attack could change history. And after Germany's dominant start in the group, there was pressure on both teams to avoid falling behind early. That is what made the match feel so tense. A draw might not have been a disaster for either side, but a win? A win would completely change the picture. Then came the twist. McCarthy's halftime prediction did not survive the full match, because Ivory Coast found the breakthrough late on, and the man who delivered it was Ahmad. Coming off the bench in the second half, Ahmad made the kind of impact every manager dreams of. With the game balanced on a knife edge, he stepped up and produced a stylish right-footed finish to give Ivory Coast a 1-0 victory. Just like that, the story flipped. What had looked like a cautious match suddenly became a massive result for Ivory Coast. And for McCarthy, there was an extra layer to the moment. Ahmad had worked with him at Manchester United, making the winning goal even more interesting given the comment McCarthy had made earlier in the broadcast. The joke had been that both teams looked ready to settle, but Ahmad had other ideas. He turned a possible point into three. He turned a careful group stage opener into a statement, and he gave Ivory Coast a huge platform for the rest of the group. For Ecuador, the late goal was a painful sucker punch. They had built their identity around defensive resilience, but one late moment undid so much of their work. Instead of leaving with a point and a sense of control, they left with pressure building ahead of their next matches. Their next game against Curaçao suddenly becomes even more important. Ecuador may now need not only a win, but goals. If their most realistic route to the knockout stage becomes finishing as one of the best third-place teams, goal difference could become crucial. And that is where the problem lies. Their defense may be strong, but goals have not always come easily. For Ivory Coast, the situation looks far brighter. With 3 points already secured, even one more point from their remaining games against Germany and Curaçao could put them in a strong position to reach the last 32. That would be a major step for a team still chasing a historic World Cup breakthrough. So, what began as a strange BBC studio comment ended with a dramatic answer on the pitch. Benni McCarthy said it looked like both teams had already agreed on the result. But football refused to follow that script. Ahmad came off the bench, scored the winner, and gave Ivory Coast a huge victory that could shape the entire group. For Ecuador, it is now a test of response. They have to regroup quickly, find goals, and make sure one late moment does not define their tournament. For Ivory Coast, this could be the start of something bigger. A first win, a late hero, a group suddenly opened up. And once again, the World Cup has proved one thing. Even when a match looks quiet, one moment can turn everything upside down. The question now is simple. Was this just one dramatic win for Ivory Coast? Or was it the night their World Cup story truly began?